Hi, I'm Vitold and this is Ducati Diavel, likely the most cool motorcycle in the world. Fun factor, it looks super powerful engine, plenty of power, make it super exciting. And Ducati Diavel was the first in this line, and now there is Diavel 1260, which is the second generation of a bike, which in less than 10 years on the market has become a legend. And I know some of you ride the Diavels 1260 or XDiavels, and man, I'm telling you guys, you've got yourselves a fabulous machine. It's perhaps the most exciting bike out there, period. Now, the Diavel 1260 has in general a new engine and new styling. It's similar to yet another bike known as a XDiavel, so just with one additional letter in the beginning of that name. Ducati XDiavel, which even though was named in a very similar way, was different than just the Diavel of its first generation, and the only big element for these two shared was the name in those few letters. Pretty much everything except for some details was different. Now, the first Ducati Diavel and the newest Diavel 1260 are a naked bike and a bit of a cruiser in one. On the other hand, the XDiavel is a naked bike and a cruiser in one. So what the hell am I talking about? How does this make any sense? Right, so now first thing, Diavel is more of a naked bike than a cruiser, while XDiavel has more of a cruiser feel to it rather than a naked bike feel. That's the main difference in an idea for these two. That's what I would like to start with. And let's focus on what we have today, which is Diavel 1260 and XDiavel. There is pretty much everything different in them. Second point is that there is a different frame in these two. It is a steel trellis frame, but it's a different platform in each of them. Sitting position is different, and this will be the biggest and the most noticeable difference between the two once you sit on them. 3. The seat is lower in an XDiavel, and 4, footrests are positioned much more forward than the Diavel 1260. And I'll get to that in a second. Now, when I rode the first Diavel, people would stare at the bike like it was some kind of a scary witch, but they could not stop looking. But once I would get closer, they would become genuinely interested. On the other hand, my experience with XDiavel has gone to even more extreme than that. Note that I felt like I had never before got so many looks riding any bike. Now, on XDiavel, people would show thumbs up, they would try to interact, and what you are seeing are just a few examples. Really, it is a lot of fun and people enjoy seeing these bikes. And having ridden dozens of motorcycles in my life, these two created definitely the most attention and grabbed the largest number of looks on the streets. Another fantastic thing is that they both sound great with stock exhaust systems. Adding aftermarket ones makes them totally insane, and this is fabulous. This is fabulous. Just listen for yourselves how this was sounding from my perspective. These are stock exhausts. Now let's dig deeper into the engines. XDiavel has Ducati Testa Stretta DVT 1262 cubic centimeter V-twin engine with 160 horsepower and 127 Nm of torque, and Diavel 1260 has the same engine just with 162 horsepower and 129 Nm of torque. Everything looks the same, and it's mostly true until we check when most and maximum torque is available in both motorcycles. And that's the number 5, as Diavel 1260 delivers its maximum torque that is pretty much the same as in XDiavel at 7,500 RPM. Nice and low. Now, the XDiavel has a bump that you can see on the chart, and that bump of maximum torque is very low because it's between 4,500 RPM and 5,000 RPM. This is its cruiser-oriented character showing up. Both have plenty of torque and both have most of it available already from 4,000 RPM, which is very convenient. Differences are not huge, but we see that XDiavel will feel the strongest at a lower range than Diavel 1260. This is something worth knowing. Both of these bikes actually weigh almost the same. 221 kilograms dry for XDiavel and 223 kilograms dry for Diavel 1260. 6. Fuel tanks are slightly different, with 1 liter of difference in capacity, and XDiavel having that 1 liter more and total of 18 liters, while XDiavel 1260 has 17 liters. So you may visit one more nightclub on a Diavel 1260. Now, in terms of riding, and because performance will be similar if we are talking about pushing the bikes to their limits, you may assume that it will not differ at all. The real difference will be felt in how you operate these bikes because of your position on them. This is a choice between an agile naked bike in a form of a Diavel and an aggressive cruiser, which XDiavel is in this case. Grip and cornering capabilities will be very similar, but you will obviously feel them differently by default with original setup. Number 7 is that you may control the Diavel more thanks to applying more weight on the left or right foot peg, which you won't be able to do on an XDiavel. There is just one main pressure and weight point, and it's your butt. So there's not that much feel of control there, and be aware of that in case of XDiavel. Also, both have riding modes, both have power modes, they both have cornering ABS, Ducati traction control, and full LED lighting systems. 8. It's just that Ducati mentions on their website that Diavel 1260 also has wheelie control, and one very useful feature, which is a quick shifter that enables you to change gears up and down without using clutch at certain conditions. Very useful feature. Both also have cruise control, backlit handlebar switches, which many of you like, and also a keyless ignition that I really love myself. It is, in my opinion, one of the best, if not the best, feature of recent years in motorcycle industry, along with cornering ABS. And if you agree, go ahead and hit a like button out there. Now let's move to a big difference between XDiavel and Diavel 1260, which is that Diavel has a chain drive while an XDiavel is propelled by a belt. Yep, so there is such a solution, not a chain, not a drive shaft, but a belt. It's unusual today, but there it is. What it means is that XDiavel's solution, a belt, will be more quiet, it'll be more smooth, and less messy in terms of maintenance. No more spraying if you go with this bike. And I am a fan of drive shaft for the same reason, for maintenance. It is perhaps heavier, this drive shaft, but come on, you don't really need to do anything with it. So it's the XDiavel that gives you more convenience here. Now, some of you were wondering what was making noise in the first Diavel that I was riding some time ago. None of us could realize in the beginning, but there was this annoying clicking sound that even my microphone while sitting on a bike would pick up, despite the bike's crazy exhaust sound. Still stock, however. So now we know that it was the chain that was too loose at that time. And here you have one of the issues of having a good old chain. Now, a lifespan of a belt should be as long as a few chains replaced one after another. So it lets you get rid of a few problems. And of course, you need to give it a look from time to time to make sure that everything is all right. But that's basically it. So XDiavel wins here. Both have a rear tire of the same size, that is a 240 millimeter wide by 45% profile on 17-inch rims. In other words, both will look just as awesome and as badass from the back, just as both will have an annoying 3.5-inch display in front of you. So forget about setting anything on these weird inventions. So it will be a pain in the butt using either of them. I'm telling you, been there, done that. Seat height is where another big difference is. That's the difference number 3, in more detailed now. I'm getting back to that. Both will be suitable for small people with big wallets, I guess. On a Diavel 1260, your wallet will hang as low as 78 centimeters from the ground, while an XDiavel is even less demanding, with its seat height of just 75.5 centimeters. But don't get all that happy yet. First, go and check if you can actually reach the footrests, the foot pegs, that are moved very far forward on an XDiavel. That was the number 4 point. Only then go and get yourself the XDiavel once you make sure. So all in all, both fighters have tied in this battle on points, I guess. However, your back may hurt more on an XDiavel because of that default position on it. And I myself felt weird, as I never rode a cruiser before, and I was constantly looking for foot pegs where I would normally expect them. So down there, not forward right there. So nope, you've got to position yourself like on a slide with legs extended forward on an XDiavel. Not that crazily much, but still that's the position. Or like in sports car versus an SUV, or sitting at your dining table or an office chair like I am doing right now. This would be a case of a Diavel sitting on an office chair, and sitting in a sports car or sitting on a slide and sliding down would be an XDiavel. If you are a normal rider, at the beginning you will most likely feel better and more comfortable on a regular Diavel, not the XDiavel. If you are planning long journeys, your legs may actually like the position on an XDiavel more, because you will have them stretched and knee angle will be much smaller, and your back may like it much less on the other hand. So if you're looking for a cruiser, coming from a cruiser, then you will feel at home on an XDiavel. The second thing that I really have to mention, next to all the bumps and potholes hurting more on an XDiavel, is that I felt somehow insecure filtering traffic in the city, having my legs stretched so far away in the front. And I believe that, considering sitting position, Diavel will give you more control than an XDiavel. It's easier to hold it with your knees and to get hold on to it in general. If you are into faster riding or riding in the city, Diavel should give you more control and therefore more joy out of having that control. Now, having said all that, if you love the XDiavel and are wondering how to deal with that weird sitting position with foot pegs so far forward, guess what? For $1,000 or for €1,000 around, you may get yourself a special kit that allows you to move those foot pegs back to the mid position, pretty much where they would be in a Diavel 1260. So you can have them where you want them, and I think that this is awesome, and it may change many people's final choices. Yes, it costs extra, yes. Also, you need to install it yourself, but there you have it. Just note that you will suddenly have your legs extremely bent because the seat is lower on the XDiavel, so you may need to get a higher seat too, and perhaps a different handlebar as well. But to hell with that. All that is possible if you really like the XDiavel more than Diavel 1260 for whatever reason, and you just cannot accept a cruiser position. There are also differences in the way these bikes look, and this is interesting since we are now dealing with a new generation of Diavel, the Diavel 1260. Which looks much different. The first Diavel looked in a very much different way. It kind of represented a different style, and I would describe it as a dark motorcycle that Batman would ride if he had to pick some production bike. The second Diavel, the 1260, looks very much like the XDiavel now, and it's confusing why Ducati have done that to it. And sometimes it's very difficult to tell which one is which. You may think that the XDiavel is much longer in terms of looks than Diavel 1260, but in fact there's just 1.5, that's about this much, 1.5 centimeters difference, with Diavel 1260 having 1 meter 60 centimeters of wheelbase and XDiavel having 1 meter 61.5 centimeters of wheelbase. So I would say that there is no real difference there. Diavel 1260 looks less smooth and more like an Amstaff instead of a Doberman, which in this case would be the slimmer XDiavel. Now, if you've got trouble telling them apart, just look if foot pegs are straight down from the seat, or they are much more forward, more like down from the fuel tank. Down from the fuel tank means it's an XDiavel, the cruiser. Below the seat means it's a Diavel. It's just that simple. Also, XDiavel's rear part of the body, its fairing, ends before the rear wheel's axle, and the Diavel's rear part extends slightly behind the axle. The third thing that you may notice is that Diavel's exhaust pipes are parallel to the ground, and XDiavel's were pointed slightly upwards before the 2021 model year. It is a fun thing to have. It was a fun thing to have, by the way, but no more. If you look for the pre-2021 model year, don't worry, the actual exits of the pipes were not pointing up your pants, but they were kind of directed into the back anyway, so it's all right, and you won't burn yourself with hot exhaust gases. Anyway, now for 2021, XDiavel has its pipes also parallel to the ground, so actually this point is no longer valid. And the last obvious thing is that XDiavel doesn't have side fairings, the plastics on the side, in the front, while Diavel without the X has them. Now there's no easy way of telling which one is which if you see the bikes from the front or from the rear. Even the front light is now super similar in both motorcycles. However, being fairly close, you may notice one different thing that actually is a super cool feature in Diavel 1216. I'm talking about indicators that in XDiavel are rather normal and they are sticking out to the side, but in a Diavel 1260 they are integrated into the fairings and are much bigger this way. This is super fun, really, this looks awesome. And it's also a good thing because sometimes it helps you tell them apart. So let's move further, as both of these bikes have single-sided swing arms and beautiful rims. This is awesome on both of these. In terms of prices, it depends on a market, and sometimes a base Diavel 1260 will be cheaper, and in some places a base XDiavel 1260 will be cheaper. So we may agree that they both cost pretty much the same. Now pay close attention. If you are to take your blonde or brunette girlfriend for a ride, you will have to double check how slim she is. Yeah, that's a new challenge by Ducati with those Diavels and XDiavels, to be precise. If you choose to go with XDiavel, since its passenger seat is smaller than Diavel's, perhaps this is actually the most important information out of them all. Now, if you are seriously considering riding with a passenger, there is an accessory in the form of a backrest for both of these bikes, so that in reality you don't drop them somewhere on the way home, and the Diavel will perhaps be more comfortable as its seat is a bit bigger. But I highly recommend you getting the backrest for both bikes, as otherwise, with all that power, it may be a struggle for your passenger if you decide to race some Ferrari and show who the boss in the area is. And in my opinion, there's literally not one thing that may be wrong with either of these bikes, except for Ducati's questionable reliability and, let's say, a chain in simple Diavel, the Diavel without X. But as long as these bikes work, they will be awesome, and I'm happy if you guys can experience them at any point. I wish the Diavel 1260 also had the belt drive, whatever, to be more pleasant to maintain, but other than that, and considering either of them, I really cannot find any flaws here. So please guys, let me know what you think about it, and thanks for watching. And if you found this video useful, then see you in the next one.